Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching Eagle News International. On tonight's headlines. Tonight, dozens of people were injured in the southern Philippines in a crush of students and parents seeking a cash handout ahead of the reopening of schools. Kobe Bryant's widow tells the court she was devastated when she learned first responders had snapped graphic photographs of her dead husband and daughter in the wreckage of the helicopter crash that killed them. At least 8 civilians are confirmed dead in a bomb and gun attack by the Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab group on a popular hotel in the Somali capital Mogadishu as security forces continue to battle Islamist fighters holed up inside many hours after the siege began. And French President Emmanuel Macron said that Russian President Vladimir Putin has agreed that independent inspectors can travel to the Moscow-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant as fears grow over fighting near the site. Tonight, dozens of people were injured in the southern Philippines in a crush of students and parents seeking a cash handout ahead of the reopening of schools. Crowds began gathering outside distribution sites across the country after the government announced financial aid of up to 4,000 pesos for those struggling to cover educational expenses. Here's Social Welfare Secretary Erwin Tulfo.
Nahirapan ho kaming i-contain dahil sa volume po, sa dami po ng tao na dumating po ngayong araw. Despite the fact that we have announced na meron pong 6 na Sabado po ang pamamahagi namin ng educational assistance. Binigyan ho namin sila ng stub para sabihin bumalik. Ayaw din nilang bumalik because sinasabing gusto nila na mabayaran sila ngayong araw. And then the President understood and he said, bantayan, tutukan. And he suggested na gusto mo bang humingi ng tulong sa DILG? Sabi ko naman, yes sir. Sabi niya, I think mas maganda pagtulungan ka na in DILG. So that's what we are going to do.
29 people were treated in hospital for minor injuries, according to Social Welfare Secretary Erwin Tulfo, who had announced the cash payments in recent days. Tulfo told reporters he had to call on riot police to stop people forcing their way through the front gate of his office compound in Manila on Saturday as they sought cash aid. He described them as people in crisis and said he was sorry the distribution program had led to injuries. In other news, disaster has not yet been averted. The situation remains tense around Europe's biggest power station, and pleas for de-escalation abounds as the head of the UN visits the southern port city of Odessa. Take a look. Antonio Guterres has reiterated his calls to demilitarize a safe zone around the Russian-held Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine accuse each other of striking the nuclear plant, which has been shelled repeatedly in the past week. Zaporizhzhia is the biggest nuclear power plant in Ukraine and in Europe. Kiev accused Moscow on Friday of planning to cut electricity produced in Zaporizhzhia. Ukrainian energy operator Ergoatom also warned Russia was limiting staff access to the site. Faced with the prospect of some 4 million Ukrainians being left in the dark, Secretary General Antonio Guterres has this warning. Let's listen in.
Obviously, the electricity from Zaporizhzhia is Ukrainian electricity, and it's necessary, especially during the winter, for the Ukrainian people, and this principle must be fully respected.
Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron said that Russian President Vladimir Putin has agreed that independent inspectors can travel to the Moscow-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant as fears grow over fighting near the site. According to French President Emmanuel Macron's office, President Putin has reconsidered his demand that the International Atomic Energy Agency travel through Russia to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear site. Moscow, however, said President Putin emphasized that the systemic shelling of the territory of Zaporizhia nuclear power plant by the Ukrainian military poses a danger of a large-scale disaster that could lead to radiation spillover onto a large territory. Now, according to RT News, President Putin also informed his French counterpart on the implementation of the deal for Ukrainian grain exports via the Black Sea. And this agreement, which was brokered by the UN and Turkey, is also supposed to allow Russia to deliver fertilizers and food products to the global markets. However, the Kremlin also noted that obstacles for the Russian grain export persist, which continues to have an adverse effect on global food security. In other news, an emotional testimony from Vanessa Bryant, the widow of Kobe Bryant. And in her lawsuit over photos from the helicopter crash that killed her husband and daughter, Gianna, Bryant sued LA County and some of its employees after those photos were shared and even allegedly passed around at a bar. Take a look. A tearful Vanessa Bryant said she lives in fear every day. Her 3 surviving daughters will see those pictures surfacing on the internet and constantly being spread. Vanessa Bryant told the Los Angeles court on Friday she had bolted out of the house to find a place to cry away from her daughters when she learned of the existence of these photos. I broke down and cried, and I wanted to run down the block and just scream, according to the Los Angeles Times, reporting her as saying, "I don't want my children to ever come across them," she said. "I have 3 little girls." Bryant is suing Los Angeles County for unspecified millions of dollars in damages. And the suits allege negligence and invasion of privacy. Attorneys say the grisly mobile phone pictures were snapped as souvenirs by first responders who had no business taking photos. Chris Chester, whose wife and daughter also perished in the crash, told the courtroom in Los Angeles of his disbelief when he learned of the pictures a month after the tragedy, including that they had been flaunted at a bar and at an awards ceremony. Mara Marshall, or Mara Hashmal, representing the county in the civil litigation, said they don't dispute that the photos were taken, but insist they've never been made public and have now been deleted. Relatives of other victims were last year granted $2.5 million in compensation over the photo taking. And tonight, the death toll from a Thai nightclub inferno has risen to 20. Our Southeast Asia correspondent, Jomerl Baldo, joins us live from Thailand. Jomerl.
Yes, hello, Alma. That is correct. The health officials said that the death toll from a Thai nightclub inferno has risen to 20 as victims continue to receive medical treatment. The blaze broke out August 5th at Mountain Bee Club in Chonburi Province, roughly 150 kilometers or 93 miles southeast of Bangkok. Authorities found 13 charred bodies inside the venue. Chonburi Provincial Public Health Office said 7 others have since died from their injuries, with the latest fatality from a 50-year-old man, and all victims were Thai nationals. The local health authority said that there are 25 injured who are still receiving medical treatments in hospitals, with 9 on ventilators. Flammable acoustic foam on the walls of the club accelerated the blaze, and it took firefighters more than 3 hours to bring it under control. A Chonburi senior police officer confirmed on Saturday that the club owner, a father and a son, have been charged with causing death through reckless and operating a pub without a license. Reporting from EBC Thailand Bureau, I am Jomerl Baldo, and we live in extraordinary times.
Thank you, Jomerl, for that update. Meanwhile, much of Europe is still baking in hot and dry weather, fueling an unprecedented fire season. In Spain, a wildfire in the eastern part has flared up again as a new blaze is now threatening its natural park. Beverly Madrid reports from Spain. Bev.
A major wildfire in eastern Spain that has destroyed vast swathes of land gathered pace overnight after flaring up again despite heavy rainfall as another started Friday inside a nearby natural park. So far this year, Spain has suffered nearly 400 wildfires following punishing heat waves and long dry spells that have devastated more than 283,000 hectares of land, more than 3 times the total area destroyed in 2021. Over the past week, hundreds of firefighters have been battling 2 major wildfires raging out of control in the Valencia region, with a bout of heavy rainfall offered some respite, almost totally extinguishing the flames. Although it put an end to the Vaidebo fire near Benidorm, the veggies blazed some 70 kilometers, 45 miles northwest of Valencia City, flared up again and burning its way towards the Sierra Calderona Natural Park. It has already destroyed 19,000 hectares of land. Early on Friday, the emergency services said another blaze began at Olocau, inside the Sierra Calderona Park, some 40 kilometers southeast of Vegis. It added that local residents have been confined to their homes as a preventative measure. The Vaidebo fire began on Saturday and the Vegis blazed 2 days later, forcing some 3,000 people to be evacuated in total. So far this year, the latest figures from the European Fire Information System show that Spain has been hit by 391 wildfires. Reporting from Spain, I'm Beverly Madrid, and we live in extraordinary times.
The number of people at risk of starvation in the drought-ravaged Horn of Africa has increased to 22 million. That according to the UN's World Food Program. WFP Executive Director David Beasley wrapped up a visit to drought-ravaged Somalia. Let's listen in.
Climate change is impacting the entire world, and where I stand here in the Horn of Africa is absolutely no different. We're now looking at 20 million people marching to starvation here in the Horn of Africa. In fact, where I stand in Somalia, 7 million people, and that's twice as many as it was just 6 months ago. Why? Conflict, extremist groups, coupled with the driest season that we have seen in decades. 4 or 5 rainy seasons have just disappeared. And in the past 4 decades, the driest we've ever seen it in a long, long time.
Since the start of the year, 9 million more people have slipped into severe food insecurity across Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia, leaving 22 million people struggling to find enough food to eat. Across the Horn of Africa, the drought is expected to continue in the coming months, with a 5th poor rainy season forecast later this year. WFP is targeting 8.5 million people across the Horn of Africa, up from 6.3 million at the start of the year. Scorching temperatures in eastern China have pushed up egg prices because hens are laying fewer in a hotter than usual summer. And the heat wave is putting not only humans but animals under stress too. In Hefei City, farmers reported a drop in egg production because of the heat, according to a Jianghuai Morning News report last week, adding that some facilities have installed cooling systems for their hens. The drop in supply in several provinces has caused egg prices to jump. Extreme weather has become more frequent owing to climate change, scientists say, and this will likely grow more intense as temperatures rise, impacting economies and societies around the world. Multiple major cities in China have recorded their hottest days ever this year, and the country's National Observatory issued a red alert on Monday. In addition to impacting poultry farms, the heat wave has also forced electricity rationing in lithium hub Sichuan in the face of soaring demand for power. In other news, Mexico arrested a former Attorney General who led a controversial investigation into the disappearance of 43 students in 2014, one of the country's worst human rights tragedies. Ex-Attorney General Jesus Murillo Caram is the most senior figure detained so far in connection with the case, which shocked the nation and generated international condemnation. He's considered the architect of the so-called historical truth version of events presented in 2015 by the government of then-President Enrique Peña Nieto that was widely rejected, including by relatives. Murillo Caram, a former heavyweight of the once dominant Institutional Revolutionary Party, or PRI, was arrested for the crimes of forced disappearance, torture, and perverting justice. The teaching students had commandeered buses in the southern state of Guerrero to travel to a demonstration in Mexico City before they went missing. Investigators say they were detained by corrupt police and handed over to the Guerrero's Unidos drug cartel, which mistook them for members of a rival gang. According to the official report presented in 2015, cartel members killed the students and incinerated their remains at a garbage dump. A member of the notorious Islamic State kidnap and murder cell known as the Beatles was sentenced to life in prison by a U.S. court for the deaths of 4 American hostages in Syria. El Shafi El Sheikh, 34, was given 8 concurrent life sentences with no possibility of parole after being convicted in April of hostage-taking, conspiracy to murder U.S. citizens, and supporting a terrorist organization. The jury deliberated for less than 6 hours and found El Sheikh guilty for his role in the deaths of 4 Americans. Journalist James Foley and Steven Sotloff and aid workers Peter Kassig and Kyla Mueller. El Sheikh and another former Beatle, Alexander Cody, were captured by a Kurdish militia in Syria in January 2018 and handed over to U.S. forces in Iraq, while they were flown to the U.S. in 2020 to face trial. Cody, 38, pleaded guilty in September 2021 and was sentenced to life in prison in April. The hostage-takers who grew up and were radicalized in London were nicknamed the Beatles by their captives because of their distinctive British accents. Meanwhile, Diane Foley, mother of murdered hostage James Foley, addressed El Sheikh and the court and noted was the 8th anniversary of her son's gruesome beheading. Take a look.
This sentencing made clear to all who dare to kidnap, torture, or kill any American citizen abroad that U.S. justice will find you wherever you are. This anniversary of Jim's brutal beheading is the solemn and tragic marker that no family should have to endure. But this continues. Currently, we have more than 67 of our U.S. nationals currently wrongfully detained, held hostage abroad, simply for being American.
The punishment fits the crime in this case, absolutely. What he did to the Americans and all the other hostages, he will spend the rest of his days in a cell and have the time to consider what he's done. And it's a deterrent to others as well, not to do this kind of thing.
Foley, Sotloff, and Kasich were beheaded by Mwazi, and videos of their deaths were released by ISIS for propaganda purposes. Mueller was initially held by the Beatles but was later turned over to ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who reportedly raped her repeatedly. ISIS announced Mueller's death in February 2015. The group said she was killed in a Jordanian airstrike, a claim disputed by U.S. authorities. Baghdadi died during a U.S. Special Forces raid in 2019. In other news, the man who has died in a shooting at a shopping center in Sweden was the target of the attack, according to police today. A man and a woman were wounded in a shooting at a mall in the southern city of Malmö on Friday, with the man eventually succumbing to his injuries and the woman hospitalized. On Saturday, the chief of Malmo Police, Petrus Stenkula, told a press conference that actually everything leads us to believe that this man was the target of this execution. Police have said that they have arrested a 15-year-old suspected shooter. The woman victim, who was in serious condition, was thought to have been a passerby. Police consider the shooting to be an isolated criminal incident and have excluded any terror links. The news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa new era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Ngayong linggo sa Cine Throwback.
You please draw me a sheep. I'm gonna find you. Oh, how beautiful you are.
I'm only half awake. Forgive me, I'm still quite disheveled.
You're perfect. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly.
Ngayong linggo, alas 12 ng tanghali. Dito lang sa Net25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net25.
Pinatatabang ng panahon ang tamis ng nakalipas. Hindi na parte si Yuwal ng buhay ko. Simula ngayon, buburahin ko na lahat ng alaala niya.
Papa? Gusto kong kargahin mo ako. Masaya ako. Natupad ang pangarap ni Mr. O na magkaroon ng isang masayang pamilya.
Hindi lahat ng kwento ay masayang nagwawakas.
Huwag ka nang mag-isip pang gumanti. Kahit kay Siwal man o sa Yangji. Para sa magiging anak natin.
Kaya kong isuko ang pagmamahal ko. Ngunit hindi ang aking paghihiganti.
A Place in the Sun.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net25.
Kung may Dolphy Classic, meron Alma Moreno Classics. Ang tawag dito, Alma Isms.
Ready na po ba kayong umorder?
Oo.
For dine-in po o to go?
For Vandal, for Jenny, and for me.
Matanong ko, no, more or less, ilang pelikula nang nagawa mo?
More.
More?
Mali ba? Less.
Welcome back. At least 8 civilians have been killed in an Islamist militant attack on a popular hotel in the Somali capital as security forces continued to battle gunmen barricaded inside. Take a look. Fighters from the Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab stormed the Hyatt Hotel in Mogadishu on Friday evening in a hail of gunfire and bomb blasts, trapping scores of people inside. Sporadic gunfire and loud explosions could still be heard early on Saturday. Police spokesman Abdi Fattah Adan Hassan had told reporters late Friday that the initial blast was caused by a suicide bomber who forced his way into the hotel with several other gunmen. Witnesses said a second blast occurred just a few minutes later, inflicting casualties on rescuers and members of the security forces and civilians who rushed to the scene after the first explosion. The militants claim responsibility in a brief statement on a pro-Shabaab website, saying its fighters were carrying out random shooting inside the hotel. Al-Shabaab spokesman Abdiaziz Abu Musab told the group's Andalus radio today that its forces were still in control of the building and that they had inflicted heavy casualties. Earlier this week, the U.S. announced that its forces had killed 13 Al-Shabaab fighters in an airstrike in the central southern part of the country as the Islamist militants were attacking Somali forces. In recent weeks, Al-Shabaab fighters have also launched attacks on the Somalia-Ethiopia border, raising concerns about a possible new strategy by the jihadists. The UK capital is hit by its fifth YouTube strike, or its fifth tube strike this year. The strike by the RMT union, which will be followed by a national rail strike today, is unbelievably the 12th day of woe for travelers this year. Our UK correspondent, Jericho Season, reports from London.
Public transport workers in London held fresh strikes over pay and conditions, cutting services on almost all underground and overground rail lines that link up the UK's capital.
I was meant to come from Leytonstone going towards central London, but then there's no trains. The train only stops in Liverpool, so I did now come up here and find another thing. So I'm looking for routes I can walk either. Yeah.
So hoping to catch a bus. Would have left about 8 o'clock, so it's now like 8:30. Still no buses arrived, but.
A spokesperson for Transport for London, responsible for most of the capital's network, said there were almost no tube underground services, with only a couple lines functioning with very reduced services. Members of the RMT, Transport Workers Union, which represents a majority of the workforce, called Friday's strike over job cuts, pension security pay, and changes to working practices.
We have tried to sit down around the table and negotiate, and have been doing for 8-9 months and getting nowhere. Yes, I believe a lot of the public, as have proved this morning, that didn't realise there was a strike, have come and missed trains, but have still said, good on you. You know what I mean? The solidarity is there with the general public. I think they understand that the time has come where everybody deserves a fair crack of the whip.
I am 100% behind the strikers, completely. Absolutely, I used to work in retail. I've worked in bad jobs with low pay. I'm very much in favour of them. They need higher wages. The train travel, exorbitantly expensive. If it's that expensive, they should be receiving more money, or at the very least, hiring more people so trains run smoothly. The amount of times I've been affected by late trains or delays. I used to go to school by train. So yeah, 100% behind the strikers.
Passengers outside the closed Black Horse Road underground station expressed frustration at long detours or costly taxi rides that they would have to take.
Taxi, probably going to cost $100. Yeah.
And I'm actually on my way to a wedding right now, but the train strikes have affected me because I was meant to be there at 11, but now I'm going to get to Manchester at 12, and then I need to go another 2 hours from there, so I'm going to be really late.
Had to take a couple of buses instead of the normal tubes, so like the journey towards the this station took around like 3 times more time. So like instead of 1 hour regular, it took like 3 hours for me to reach over here.
The strike action comes after nationwide rail strikes on Thursday hit the majority of services, as union members have rejected an 8% pay rise that is below inflation. There will be further nationwide rail strikes on Saturday. The RMT has refused to put an end date on the industrial action. London Mayor Sadiq Khan, an opposition Labour politician, told Sky News that he did not back strike action but understood why transport workers are frustrated and worried, saying the government shouldn't be punishing hard-working transport workers. The government has taken a tough line on strikes, vowing not to participate in talks. He complained that unions were blocking a pay offer from Network Rail, which manages the rail network, that would increase salaries by 8% over 2 years without consulting members. Opposition Labour leader Keir Starmer tweeted that Shapps could resolve these strikes by getting around the table and doing his job. Transport Minister Grant Shapps told Sky News that ministers want to push through modernisation that the RMT union opposes, including on Sunday working. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, this is Jericho Season, and we live in extraordinary times.
President Bongbong Marcos Jr. today pledged to improve the Philippines' relations with Cambodia as the two countries celebrate the 65th anniversary of diplomatic relations. In his letter to Cambodian King Norodom Sihamoni, dated August 20, Marcos expresses resolve to further boost the enduring friendship between the Philippines and Cambodia. He said, "I'm committed to further strengthening and expanding our partnership and cooperation as both our countries strive towards greater economic and social development for the benefit of our peoples." The Philippines and Cambodia established their official diplomatic relations on August 20, 1957. The news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Glass skin, glow, whitening, collagen. Ilan lang yan sa paulit-ulit nating nakikita at naririnig na pampaganda. At dumarami pa rin ang mga beauty products na available sa atin, whether from local producers or imported ones. There is no doubt that beauty is big business. Pag-uusapan natin kung ano nga ba ang kahalagahan ng skincare routine, overall wellness for health and beauty, at paano maging beautiful at healthy kahit tight ang budget. Para lang ba ito sa mga younger ones or pwede rin sa mga young ones? Paano rin ba ang iba't ibang paraan kung paano tayo kikita sa napakalaking industriya ng pagpapaganda? Aalamin natin yan together with our guest, Miss Jeannie Uy, the CEO and President of Nutra Vita International Corporation, National Stockist of Avita, and Avita Diamond President. Only here at Open for Business.
My vision for this Avita platform is to see more and more Filipinos having that success in health and wealth. Tayong mga Pilipino, kayang-kaya natin ito. Health is the #1 wealth now.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Welcome sa aming bagong tahanan. Say hi, Tati.
Hi! Bossing Poleng, meron akong kwento. Yay! Story time!
Itago nyo na lang ako sa pangalang Jojo.
Jojo nga po pala. Boyfriend ko.
Good evening po.
Ikaw! Puyat mo nga dyan!
May bago tayong tambayan.
Dito lang sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net 25.
Kaya pag-isipan mo ang mga ikikilos mo mula ngayon.
Ang may nakaraan, hindi basta mapipigilan.
Bakit mo ako dinadamay sa kamalasan mo? Isa pa. Alam mo to? Listahan to ng mga irregularities na ginagawa ng pamilya Choi.
Pwede kong
Dalhin to hanggang sa hukay para hindi na malaman ni Chairman Han. Nasa iyo ang desisyon. Kailangan mo ako ulit para tuluyan ang mawala si Minho sa landas mo.
May linaw na matutuklasan sa kasalanang pinagsisisihan.
Pinagsisisi ako na ginawa ko sa'yo. Yung lalaki nag-utos sa akin gawin niya sa'yo para hindi ka makalaya sa kulungan.
Tutukan sa Fatal Promise.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net25.
Welcome back. A robotic arm built to collect human samples for COVID screening, a barista robot, and dozens of dancing cyber dogs were among the highlights of the annual World Robot Conference that opened in Beijing. Take a look. From the Leaning Tower of Pizza to a real-looking dragon emerging from a dragon fruit, the makers of Japan's fake food are getting creative and taking their skills to the next level, displaying their wacky new concepts at a public exhibition in Tokyo. Take a look.
普段の仕事っていうのはお客様のやっぱりオーダーですのでお客さんの意見とかを聞き入れながらやらなきゃいけないんですけれどもコンクールの場合はもう自分の発想で全部、出来栄えも自分の中でもう満足するかしないかはもう自分次第なのでその辺はもうやりやすいって言えばやりやすいです。
自由な発想のもと、新しい、手法とかを織り込みながら自由に作品を作ってもいいというそういう一日与えられた、制作コンクールがございまして、年に1回それに向けて作った製品がこちらに並んでます。
日本人らしいアートかなと思って、今お店でね食品サンプル使ってるお店も少なくなってますからね実際問題はね。ただすごいそれをアートっていう形で残していこうっていうのは面白いかなって思いますね。で素直にすごいと思います。
The models were made with the same painstaking detail as the rock-solid noodle soups and crispy-looking plastic snacks that have long been displayed outside Japanese restaurants where they are called shokuhin sampuro, or sample food products. Sampuro are common outside ramen shops and family restaurants across Japan a century after stores began using wax models to advertise their menu to a growing middle class. Around 60 sculptures were on display, some silly, but others designed to showcase the artist's formidable skills. All the models were handmade by specialists at Iwasaki Group, Japan's leading maker of shampuru or sampuru, which celebrates its 90th anniversary this year. Fake food is a multi-million-dollar market in Japan, but sampuru production has been hit by the COVID pandemic, which reduced demand for dining out. Sampuru makers hope more tourists will soon be allowed into the country to boost the restaurant industry. The practice of showing off food samples, which the Japanese call sampuru, was first recorded in 1917 and were made with wax by a manufacturer of models named Sujiro Nishio. The models were seen as particularly creative since restaurants didn't really use menus during that time. These realistic food samples might have started out as marketing and advertising tools as well as visual aids for restaurants, but they serve a new purpose these days. Tourists appear to be all over the samples and consider them to be unique souvenirs. The Philippine Embassy in Manama, Kingdom of Bahrain, in coordination with the Al Hilal Medical Center, Manama, organized a healthy life checkup for Filipino nationals or our OFWs in Bahrain. A total of 500 Filipino patients availed of the free health checkup. Let's listen in. Our Middle East correspondent, Lorlyn Kalimlim, reports from Manama, Bahrain. Lorlyn.
In the midst of pandemic, prevention to any illnesses is a must. So why not grab the opportunity for the free life checkup, made possible by Philippine Embassy in coordination with Al Hilal Medical Center here in Adlia branch, where we are right now. The Philippine Embassy in Manama, in coordination with Al Hilal Medical Center Adlia branch, invites Filipino community ages 18 and above to a free healthy life checkup. There are approximately 800 OFWs registered for the said medical assignment. The package includes several kinds of tests, including liver and kidney screening.
Sa ngayong araw, meron tayong isang Healthy Life Checkup campaign. This is being organized by the Philippine Embassy in the Kingdom of Bahrain in cooperation with the Al Hilal Medical Center. So first of all, let me extend my thanks to the Al Hilal Medical Center for offering this free service to the members of the Filipino community in partnership with the embassy. I think yung last na naganap na medical mission ng embahada ay noong bagong pandemic. So ito ay natigil for about 2 years since the pandemic started. So ngayong medyo there's easing of restrictions already, baka makakaganap na tayo uli. Pero ito ay ang pinakaunang initiative ng embahada na talagang may in-person yung service. So out of these results, tatawagan or kukontakin ng hospital yung ating mga nag-avail ng programang ito. So gaganapin yung check-up at a discounted rate na offered din ng hospital.
Really speaking, this has been done from the beginning itself. Actually, when we have started, it's a part of our social activity. Actually, we are doing this medical camps. Right now the people after COVID and all everything, like going to a hospital and doing some blood investigation, more financial part is involved in this one. So from our directors and management, actually, they're really doing a great job actually, because for the right people, the deserving people, actually, due to the financial situation, and investigations worth rupees 30 billion more has been offered for them for absolute free. It's include liver function, kidney testers, and all such basic investigations are there actually to know that if any problem is there, it can be identified, and we are offering them a free consultation also. Embassy have took a great initiative actually to identify the right deserving people. Nearly 800 people have registered for this campaign. this will continue. This is like more than 600 camps we have organized so far.
As a part of our social commitment to the society, we Al Hilal group used to do this type of activities. Every week, every branch will be doing these type of activities. At present, we have 5 branches, and we are coming out with the 4 more branches. We are the largest health provider in Bahrain. So, as a part of our social commitment to the experts, many of them are affordable for the treatment costs and other things. That is blood test procedures, absolutely free to the society, not only to the Philippine community, to all the community we used to do it. That's why Al Hilal is flourishing day by day. Okay.
Malaking tulong po ito sa ating mga kababayan dahil alam po natin kung ano ang naging epekto ng pandemya sa ating mga OFWs dito sa Bahrain. Marami po ang nawala ng trabaho, marami rin po yung bumaba ang sahod kasi alam naman po natin karamihan sa ating mga kababayan iniisip muna ang kapakanan ng kanilang pamilya sa ibang bansa. Lahat ng kinikita nila ay pinapadala nila sa kanilang mga pamilya. So ito po, hindi na nila kukunin pa sa kanilang mga sahod ang gagastusin sa pagpapakuha ng dugo, pagpapacheck up dito sa Al Hilal. At syempre po, magagamit na nila para sa kanilang pamilya yung halaga na gagastusin dito. So maraming salamat po sa Al Hilal.
That packages are offered to Filipinos for free by Al Hilal as part of their corporate social program responsibilities to expatriates residing in the kingdom.
Kinuhanan po kami ng dugo, which is kasali na dun yun sa liver, sa creatinine, sa blood sugar. Tapos yung result, waiting pa po. Nagpapasalamat po ako sa ating embahada na malaking tulong po talaga ito sa aming mga OFW na nagtatrabaho dito na yung mga sahod ay kulang pa padala sa pamilya. So, malaking talagang tulong ito sa amin.
Maraming salamat sa Philippine Embassy sa programang ito. Kasi it's a big help po talaga sa aming mga OFW. Lalo na sobrang mahal po magpa-check po dito sa Bahrain. Lalo libre po ito. Maraming salamat. At salamat po sa free food.
Napakaganda po ng ginawa ng embahada natin ngayong araw na to. In-announce po nila yan nung nakaraang buwan. Kaya ang dami po ngayon tao dito sa hospital ng Al Hilal. Kaya ang laking tulong po nito sa mga Pilipino dito sa Bahrain.
Taking care of yourself is essential. Being far from your loved ones, you need to ensure that you are healthy all the time because you don't want your family members to worry about you while abroad. Always follow the doctor's prescription and advice, and of course, have a healthy and balanced diet and lifestyle. This is Lauren Kalimlim, your Eagle News correspondent from Manama, Bahrain, and we live in extraordinary times.
To the INC Unity Games now, athletes from Tokyo, Japan are feeling excited to see each other again after 2 years from the pandemic lockdown. Here's Tyra Nell Pilyalu reporting from our Japan Bureau. Tyra.
As Japan relaxes for the week-long holiday, Iglesia Ni Cristo organized a sports event in Tokyo for the first time since the pandemic started more than 2 years ago. INC members from Shinagawa, Kawasaki, Tokyo, Yokoda, Higashi Kurume, Saitama, Miyashiro, Yokohama, Yokosuka, Chiba, Narita, Ichikawa, Shizuoka, Numazu, Gunma, Tochigi, Ibaraki, Fukushima, Hamamatsu, and Kikugawa gathered at Kyoto no Mori General Gymnasium in Fuchu City in western Tokyo to take part in the Unity Games 2022. The church hopes to promote sportsmanship and the spirit of brotherhood not only among members but even non-members who are also welcome to join. All attendees were required to present their vaccination cards. The event began with a parade with the ministers and their families on the lead.
Unity Games po, ito po yung pagka-banding-banding po ng magkakapatid sa iba't ibang lugar po para rin po magkakilala at pangpalakas na rin po ng katawan.
Napakasaya po dahil ilang taon na rin pong nakalipas, wala pong Unity Games. Kaya nagkaroon na naman ng pagkakataon lahat ng kapatid na magkita-kita.
Kahit na magkakaiba yung lugar kung saan kami nanggaling, pagdating dito, lahat kayo magkakapatid at alam mo yung nagtuturingan talaga para sa caring sa lahat ng mga member po.
Bumabalik na naman po yung sigla ng mga kapatid, ganon. Nagkita-kita ulit, bali reunite ulit.
今日はこの大会に招いていただいて本当に心から感謝いたします。みんなが来るということなんで、私もぜひこれ1回ぐらいは参加したいと思いまして、今日は参りました。今日はお盆ですので、ちょっと休みも重なったんで、それで来ました。
May nakakatuwa pong isipin kasi kahit papaano, naipapakita namin kung papaano yung pagiging kapatiran namin.
This is our first time po to attend Unity Games. Timing kasi siya kasi wala kaming work today, so very thankful kami na naka-attend kami dito.
Rare siya na opportunity kasi kami para sa akin parang pakikipagkaisa na rin sa mga kapatid natin kahit saang sulok ng mundo dito sa Japan.
INC members in Japan also expressed their gratitude to the INC Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, for his continued support in upholding family-oriented projects like this.
Sa ating pong pinakamamahal na tagapamahalang pangkalahatan, ang kapatid ni Eduardo V. Manalo, sa kanila po na pagpapahintulot na maisagawa sa aming distrito ang Unity Games. Ito po ay tunay na kinasabikan ng mga kapatid dito po sa aming distrito. Nagpapasalamat din po kami sa tagapag-ugnay ng kapisan ng Pansambahayan, ang kapatid na Angelo Eranio V. Manalo, sa patuloy po nila na paggabay sa kapisan ng Pansambahayan sa Iglesia ni Cristo, kasama po ang aming distrito.
The religious organization will also be commemorating its 12th year anniversary as a district, as well as Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, INC Executive Minister's 13th year of leadership.
Our beloved Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, from the Ecclesiastical District of Tokyo, Japan. Happy 13th anniversary po!
From Tokyo, Japan, Tyranel Pilyulu. We live in extraordinary times.
Thank you, Tyra. As always, I'll end the day on a thoughtful note. Our ability to look back and smile at our past is proof that God's plan is to keep us moving forward. This has been Eagle News International. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay alert, stay informed, because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.
Oops, teka lang, sandali.
Sino ho kayo?
Ikaw ang sino ba talaga?
Ako ang unang nagtanong.
Sige. Ito na ang huling chance mo para sabihin ng totoo. Wala nang ibang pagkakataon. Sino ang ama?
Layas! Layas!
Aray!
Layas!
Aray!
Ha?
Sobra ka na. Tapos ka na ba?
Hindi! Marami pa akong gustong sabihin.
웃어봐 좋은 일이 생길 것 같아 맑은 하늘도 불어오는 바람도 설레이는 걸 널 보면
Kamusta po kayo?
바보처럼 웃게 되는